So welcome back to Mr. Mechanical. In this video we're back onto the mini Caterham. Going to make some progress on this today. In the last video on the Caterham we made the rear and front wishbones and we got them fitted to the chassis. So in this video I'm going to be making the rear uprights, and what I've done already is I've squared up some aluminium stock, and the plan is to machine this. There's holes to drill in it, both for the rear drive shafts to come through, and eventually on the front here there will be a hub carrier where the hub will mount and the drive shafts will mount to the hubs, and also there'll be holes to drill through the side, and they'll be for picking up on the suspension arms and on the shock absorber that will come through the top of the chassis. So as I say, this aluminium stock has now been squared up. It's to the overall dimensions, so there's some details to machine out. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill the holes in the front face and in the side while I've got it square and it's easy to reference the position of those holes, because once we start machining the details there's going to be angles to machine on the front and the back, and we'll likely lose our reference points. So there's obviously two of these to make, one for each side. So we'll get these parts in the milling machine and we'll drill those holes first. So I've now got all the holes drilled in these parts now. We've got a 15mm hole in the centre there, which is where the drive shaft will eventually come through, and we've got 4 holes which will later hold the hub carrier, 4 holes around that 15mm hole, and then on the side we've got 3 holes which will pick up on the suspension arms and the shock absorber. Next thing we need to do is there's a few angles on the front and the back to be cut on this part. So the first one I'm going to cut is here, down to this line that I've scribed just above that, those holes there. So we'll be cutting an angle and across there until it intersects that line. I do need to drop that face back. I do need to drop this face back up to that line about 2.2mm. So I'll do that first, and then that will give me the point to where my angle needs to intersect. So I just received this today, which is what I'll be using for cutting the angles. It's a tool that can go in the vise, and then you just sit your part in that angle. And what it means you can do is you've got your angles there to choose from, and you've got a 0 and a 0, 30 and 60 minute increments for each degree as well on this part. It's probably not the most accurate thing you could use, but for what I'm doing it makes it a lot easier for work holding, because I can just put this straight in the machine vise, put my part on there, and that's my angle set. And all you do is you just lock that angle once you've got it in position with that cap head screw, that Allen screw under there. So I'll get these parts set up. First of all we need to recess that front face 2.2mm, then we'll get this in the machine vise and we'll cut that angle. So I've now cut the angle on both of those parts. I'm really happy with that little tool I've got there. It's the first time I've used it in the video you've just seen there. So we now have an angle on that top side, top edge there. So we now need to cut a different angle in this back side, then it'll flatten out, and then another angle to bring it to a taper at the bottom as well. And then after that we need to cut out each side so we just have a bit of a leg sticking up in the middle. So we'll get set up to cut those angles on the back side now, and we'll take it from there. So I've now got all the angles cut on both of these rear uprights. They're looking really smart. I'm quite happy with the machine on these parts. It's got to be some of the best, well, the best parts I've made so far on the milling machine, and that little adjustable V-block came in very handy. I'll stick a link in the description to that item. So as I say, all the angles are now cut on these parts. So the next thing to do now is to cut out two shoulders. So we just have a leg sticking up out the top of here where our shock absorber and our upper wishbone can fix to. So I'll get that marked out, and we'll get it machined. So there it is, I've got that part finished now. I've got both of them finished like this, and that is the finished rear upright. So all that's left to do now is to fit it to the rear wishbones. And again, I'm just using M3 cap head screws. On the lower one I haven't got a bolt long enough to go right through that wishbone, so I'm waiting on some M3 threaded bar, because it doesn't look like I can get a long enough bolt to go right through there in M3. So once I've got that threaded bar, I'll swap out the shorter bolt I'm just going to use as a temporary measure to hold it in position. What I've done just to soften some of the machining marks is in my multi-tool. I've just used one of these abrasive wheels just to polish it up, and it's made a good job. It's took off. I mainly used it to clean up the marking out ink, the red ink, but it's also done a good job of cleaning up some of the machining marks and just softening up that finish, and I'm quite happy with that part. So we'll get it fitted. The other thing I did in the last video when I fitted the wishbones, I said that some of the travel wasn't very good. Well, I've fixed that. All I needed to do was just fettle some of the welds on the bracketry for the wishbones, and all I did again in my multi-tool, I got a set of these tungsten carbide rotary burrs. I actually got a pack of them, pack 10 different profiles. I'm going to stick a link in the description to these because they were only £10 and I thought they were going to be rubbish, but I've actually been very impressed with them. So as I say, I'll put a link in the description to where you can get hold of them. So I've already fitted the upright on the other side and it fits well, so we'll get this side fitted now. In one of the previous videos on this mini Caterham, I received a comment from Craig. He's got a YouTube channel called Craig's Workshop, and he asked a lot of questions, and he thought others might also be interested in the answers to those questions. So his first comment was on he wanted to know more about the scope of this project. So this is based on the Haynes Roadster, which is a book from the Haynes publishers, and it's a kit car based on the original Lotus 7. Caterham, they've done some copies of that original car as well. So that's what I'm building here. The chassis has been based off that book design. The rear uprights and the suspension, I'm also using the design from that book as close as possible. Now these rear uprights, they're slightly different to the book design, and that's because I wanted to make something that I could achieve, something that I could mill. I don't have a lot of experience yet on milling, so I wanted to simplify the design a bit. The other thing was I'm working with fabrication tolerances at the moment because I'm still working off the centres of the bracketry for the wishbones, and they were out by a couple of mil, and a couple of mil on something this scale can throw it out quite a lot when you're scaling down the dimensions from the book design. So I had to adjust it. I had to measure the positions of the bracketry that I'd already welded to the chassis, and then once I had the wishbones installed, again I did another measurement just to make sure that my rear uprights were definitely going to fit. So apart from that, it's based on the book. So as for the rest of the scope, in the back here, in this area, there's a differential to make, design to fit within this space, and then drive shafts, rear wheel hubs. At the moment I plan to have disc brakes on all four corners. Got a prop shaft to come down this centre section. Got a gearbox to make clutch to make, and I have drawings for a 4-cylinder 4-stroke petrol engine, which will sit in this space here. It's about 100 to 120 mil long, so that'll fit in there. I have the steering rack to make, steering column, and then eventually that steering column will then have to tie in with a radio controlled servo which will drive the steering. On the front, and in the next video I'll be making the front uprights, which will both do the suspension and the steering. Again, we'll have disc brakes, we've got calipers to make, brake calipers. The alloy wheels are planned to make. We'll have a fuel tank to install within this space here at the back. And after that we've got bodywork. What I would like to do at the moment is maybe get the bodywork 3D printed, and then I can use that to create moulds for either fiberglass, or I would really like to have a go at making some carbon fibre panels. So as I say, in the next video I'll be making the uprights. I've nearly got them designed. Again, they're based off a Ford Cortina front upright, which is the part that is recommended from the donor car for this project. Then after that I'm basically going to be working from the wheels back to the engine. So once we've got these uprights in, I've then got shock absorbers. I haven't decided whether to make them or buy them. We've then got drive shafts to make back to a differential. So the other point that Craig raised was, what was the inspiration for this project? Well, I think I said in the first video, I've always wanted to build a Haynes Roadster full size, but I don't have the space at the moment to make it. The other thing was, I found somebody that was selling drawings to make a 4-cylinder 4-stroke engine, and the thought of making an engine, something that works from scratch, that's something I was really interested in. And then I sort of combined the two ideas. Just having an engine to run or display really wasn't enough for me. I would like that engine to do something, so I then had the idea to scale down the drawings from the book to suit the size of the engine, which is what I've got here. The other thing is, my uncle is, for as long as I've known, always had kit car projects full size. He has made one of these, not to this exact design, it was a older design, and more recently he's made a Ford GT40 replica with a V8 engine. And maybe if this project goes successfully, maybe the next project could be a scaled model of the Ford GT40, which would then mean I would need to make a V8 engine, but at the moment that's a long way off. There's still a lot of design and engineering building to do on this project. His last point from Craig was, what is the end purpose for this project? What will it be used for? Well, the idea is that it will be a remote control car, but for me these sort of projects are mainly for the build. I'm not really interested in racing it at the end. It is really just about learning, problem solving, and ultimately making something that is impressive in terms of an engineering project. And the other thing is, I've spent quite a lot of money on milling machines and lathes, so I wanted a project that was going to go on for a while, that would keep those investments busy and well used. So this is what I decided to go with. So if you have any more questions, or if you have any tips, especially about model engine building, making gearboxes, eventually I'm going to have to figure out RC electrics and servos and transmitters, I believe is the word they use, not remote controls. So if you have any advice on that, then it would be appreciated. After I've finished with the suspension, I think the next thing I'm going to be looking at is the rear diff, and that's just because I've recently found somebody else on YouTube that's been they had a V10 engine and they wanted to put their V10 engine in an RC buggy, and I was looking at how he had made some of the parts, so I'm very interested in his gearbox that he's made and in his differential. I had been thinking about designing the differential from scratch and making all the parts myself, but when I saw what this guy had done, he took the gears from the inside of a angle grinder to make that differential at the back, and it just feels like an obvious solution. Rather than creating too much work, it would still be a challenge to come up with how I can use them gears without the potential of making it an unachievable goal. So I think I am going to look into that. I've started asking family if they've got any broken angle grinders that I can have, just so I can salvage the gearboxes off them, so I can use the gearing to create my differential on this. So that's it for this video. In the next video I'll be making the front uprights. I've nearly finished the drawings for them. They're a bit more complex than these because not only do they need to go up and down, they need to swivel as well for the turning. So that'll be in the next video. So thanks for watching this video, thanks for sticking to the end, and please subscribe, comment and like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.